a season of progress last season for AFC Wimbledon. They rose from 21st the year before to 10th in 23-24, and maybe Johnnie Jackson as manager answered one or two of the questions we posed of him on our summer deep dive this time last year. But after Ali Al-Hamadi left for Ipswich Town in January, or even if shortly before that he went to international duty with Iraq, Wimbledon lost that bit of firepower. So can they replace the firepower that Ali Al-Hamadi brought this season? And can they make that extra step up from 10th into a top 7 side? That's what we're going to be discussing on this AFC Wimbledon summer deep dive. Yes, welcome along to the Summer Deep Dive. This is the third of a new series of Summer Deep Dives on the EFL debate across the EFL. Go subscribe if you haven't already. But for now, I'm joined by Tom Large Reports, who's an AFC Wimbledon fan. Tom, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You must be quite encouraged by what you saw from the Dons last season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a really positive. There's really loads of positives to last season. Absolutely. I think there was a few shortfalls might be the right word. We had a few issues. Injuries, players going off international duty. But on a whole, I think it was a good season. Obviously, it was we lost a couple of unfortunate loans in January. But look, I think we started the season well. There was clearly plans and thought processes put in place. And yeah, looking forward to this one. It's weird having Saturdays back.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you been doing on your Saturdays, by the way? Have you been finding a new hobby?
A part-time cricketer, so play a bit of cricket on Saturdays, which is nice. Slightly less pressure or not less pressure, but less chaotic than watching Wimbledon play. So it's actually been probably quite good for the heart rate.
I imagine, yeah, it's a bit more of a leisurely sport, isn't it? So I think the real starting point for me, Tom, is what I mentioned in the intro, replacing Ali Al-Hamadi. It's going to take some doing because he really is probably, you could argue, one of the best centre forwards that we've seen in League Two in recent history. So clearly a huge gaping hole to replace. You've obviously brought in Matty Stevens, hoping he can replicate his title-winning 21-20 form for Forest Green before his career's been disrupted a little bit by long-term injuries. You've also got some young talent in the striking department as well, along with Josh Kelly, who you brought in from Solihull Moors. Still got Josh Davison in there alongside Omar Bagil, who's very much a first-choice option. But just how do you sort of assess the striker positions at the moment?
I think we've got, obviously, Omar Bagil, I think, and I said it to you before, I think he's the best at what he does in the league. He's a centre forward that's willing to work hard. He's willing to take kicks, willing to, take on injuries to work hard for the team. And you've seen that in his, 13 goals last year, and he really stepped up when we lost Ali. But also he got 5 assists as well as that. So I think he sort of he provides and also scores, and he doesn't mind not scoring. Obviously he got 13 goals. By the end of the season, but he could end a goal in 90 minutes as long as he's worked hard and created stuff. He'll be happy, and that's the most important thing. I think signing Matty Stevens is really exciting. I think he's going to help us with a little bit of that pressing that we've lost with Ali. I think, like you mentioned, losing Ali, I think his footballing ability speaks for itself, and obviously I think any team would lose that, and it'd be difficult to replace. Once again, it was fantastic business from Craig Cope to bring him in the first place, and I think we really enjoyed watching him play and watching him do his thing. Fantastic player. I think at one point, I think he had the most missed chances, but the most goals. And you just think that is a serious player because you've got to be in the right position to miss chances. So, he made that weapon. He helped us. I think that pressing nature of him and Omar together, it was like a wolf pack up front. And it really, really helped us play. And I think we really built a style around high pressing football, which is hard to replicate, players to be that fit 90 minutes week in, week out to high press. And Ali had that, and Omar complemented him really well with that. So I think hopefully Matty Stevens can bring that with him, a bit of tenacity and want for the ball and want to press. And I think we're yet to see the best Josh Kelly. His 2 goals were, I think, probably 2 of the first shots that were created for him, and he's dispatched them beautifully. So I think we're going to see a lot from him this year, and I imagine there'll be a lot of business still to be done. Obviously, we've signed 2 players, I want to say, Matty Stevens, and of course, Who else we signed? That's bad.
I'm not 100% sure.
It'll come back to me, I'm sure.
We'll come back to that. But let's
poor ball knowledge from me. But we've made 2 signings. There'll be Craig Cope is yet to miss with a player. Obviously, inevitably, with the nature of how League Two and player churn works, there will be a player that maybe isn't as up to standards as previous players he signed. But look, we've signed well in the history in the past, sorry, and I imagine there'll be a lot of business to be done before we go out to Benidorm on our pre-season tour, which will be a real key point for us. I think last year we were really keen on getting that done, and that I think we'll see a few names through the door very soon, hopefully.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case. I wanted to talk actually about a couple of the young lads you got who can also come into that sort of striking equation, because you've got Aaron Sassu, who I believe played either on the right wing or right wing back. I think right wing against Walsall on the final day. And then you've got Paris Locke as well, who's come through the academy and is supposed to be quite talented. Do you think there's a chance where either of those could come into the equation?
Absolutely. I'm just going to go back to your past point quickly. It was Miles Hippolyte that we signed, and I'm very, very excited for his arrival. I didn't sound it because I forgot about him, but I am genuinely quite excited for his arrival. I think he's someone we need. But yeah, back to your most recent question. I think Aaron Sassu, we've got a lot to see from him. He's a phenomenal talent and still very young. Oh, really? Yeah. Against Wrexham last year, I had the joy of travelling to Wales for that. It was a 2-0 defeat, but there was a lot to take from it. We had a very weak side. Well, not very weak's the wrong word. We didn't have a lot of first choice players. I think Ali was away and so was Omar, which obviously at the time was a big loss for us. But yeah, Aaron Sassu looked an absolute live wire out on the left wing, really, really fast. I think he's 6'3" for a left winger, which isn't always the case. We usually get small and tricky wingers, but it didn't lose anything for him. He was rapid. He had a nice turn of pace and really, really tricky. So I think we're going to see. I'm hoping he'll be involved this year. If not, I imagine maybe a first half of the season loan and then come back and smash it second half. And that is if we keep him. I thought he was very good, although I'm not a scout, so I don't know what scouts look for. But someone might come in for him. You never know. That's the nature of young players in this division. And then Paris Locke looked even, apparently. I've not seen too much about him, but people were saying on Twitter he looked even better than Aaron Sassu did before his injury and time out on loan. So again, really, really exciting times. Our academy has delivered year on, year out. So looking forward to seeing them take part. I imagine they'll be a big part of our pre-season campaign. So looking forward to those games.
I'm going to sort of persist a little bit with the striker position, just because I know it's such an important area, because I know you do like to play 2 up top a lot under Johnnie Jackson, and I guess I think it's great that you've got this range of options, because if you think about it, you've got Omar Bajil, you've got Matty Stevens, you've got Josh Davison, Aaron Sassu, we've spoken about, can play wide, but I think he can also play down the middle. You've got Josh Kelly and you've got Paris Locke. So that's 6 players who could potentially be competing for 2 positions. Now, I think that's going to be great from a point of view of rotating your strikers and keeping things fresh and having different options to keep opponents guessing. But I'm not necessarily going to put too much expectation on Matty Stevens, just because of the long-term injuries he's had in the last couple of seasons, and there's probably question marks over Josh Davison a little bit at the moment. Hopefully he can answer some of those, but I don't know that there's anyone like Al-Hamadi was this time last year, where you're primed to think, yes, this is going to be the man that gets 20 plus goals. Obviously, Al-Hamadi only got 13 because he left in January.
I think he would have picked up a lot more second half of the season as well. And I think we would have seen our points tally higher as a result of that. But yeah, no, I think the only name really you've got nailed down on the team sheet at the moment, sort of up front, is Omar Bajil. As I said earlier, I think he is the best in division what he does. But it's interesting to see who'll be alongside him because he is very good in the air. And Josh Kelly was learning. You could see him reacting to what Omar was doing, which was really exciting. I think it's key that your strikers know how to play off each other. Ali and Omar had a connection. They knew how each other played. And Josh Kelly was reacting to that. There was a few balls that went into the box. And Josh Kelly was watching what Omar did and getting onto the ball, which seems to be maybe how to get the best out of both of them. But yeah, like you said, we've got sort of 6 attackers, and I don't know how we're going to play next year formation-wise. JJ gets another
with sort of inside. No,
I'd imagine so. But Johnnie Jackson loves the diamond. We had it sort of November, December, and he really, really enjoyed that formation. We worked well with it. I think we switched to it halfway through Notts County, and obviously we beat them 4-2. And that was a fantastic performance. So yeah, it's I think there's a lot to be said about what players we sign. Obviously, we're very, not to move away from the strikers, but we only currently have Max Fawkes, who's one of our academy players, as a goalkeeper. So we could do with signing one of those, which I'm sure will come. I think we've been listed with pretty much every single goalkeeper in the league. If you go on Twitter, there's a few different shouts for players. So we'll see who we end up with. But I imagine I wouldn't be surprised if we genuinely are looking at a wide range of keepers. Because
I mean, if Courtois fancies a return to West London, then you never know.
He's always welcome if he wants to wear. I was going to say the blue and yellow, but our goalkeepers are wearing some funky colours as of recent. So if he wants to, look, we genuinely had the best goalkeeper kits in the league last year. 3 bespoke kits. Shout out to the club for that, because that's fantastic.
Why do you think Alex Bass was so good, Tom?
I know. I tell you, the kit makes a player. It's actually it's a fact. I'm pretty sure. And, oh god, the things I do for Alex Bass back, I think he'll go. Unfortunately, I think he will be going to League One, if not staying with Sunderland, because he. I mean, I know there were shouts for Arthur Okonkwo and the Stockport keeper last year, but Alex Bass was better than both of them. With all due respect to both keepers, Alex Bass was the best keeper in the division last year, and I'll stand by that. He had an ever-changing backline in front of him for most of that. Kept the most clean sheets, tied, I think, most clean sheets with Ben Hinchcliffe, is it? I think, from Stockport. Yeah, his name slipped my mind earlier, but yeah, and he was fantastic. I think he kept us in a lot of games, and I think he was a lot of the reason why we ended up so high in the table. I mean, so high compared to the season before, obviously, and why we made that sort of made that a bit of an early push for the playoffs. Before we sort of slowly ended up at 10th. But yeah, I think getting goalkeepers will be really key. And nailing down the formation, and when I think that will really fill itself out as we sign more players, because don't want to make any wild shouts here, but I think we'll be signing a few before the season starts later in the year.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, Isaac Ogundere sort of made the right back spot his own last season, but there's he's obviously under contract for next season. But there's a bit of doubt as to whether Hospila is going to renew his contract. I believe the club have offered him a deal, but he's stalled for so long on it that there's probably a bit of doubt as to whether that's going to happen. But I'm kind of surprised that. Well, I don't know how much injury might have been a factor behind last season, but I thought he was really impressive in the 22-23 season, and I really liked the bits that I saw of Hospila. I mean, do you think you're going to end up looking for another right back to compete with Ogundere?
Yeah, I think Ogundere's made that shirt his own. He was phenomenal last year. I think the thing with him and Huss is Ogundere is better as a traditional fullback. So if you're playing a right back, that's where Ogundere thrives. He's very good defensively. Obviously, can also play centre back. So I imagine his defensive qualities come from there. But he's really taken leaps forward attacking. So I think he's really growing. He's also a year younger than Hospila. So there's a lot for him. The thing with Huss is he was, like you said, phenomenal 22-23. He likes to cut and have a shot. I think that right wing back spot, when we played that with a 5 at the back, I think that really suited him. And I think we did play that mainly in sort of the 22-23 campaign. So having that width for him allowed him. And also he had a defender behind him to maybe make up for any defensive shortcomings. He does sometimes struggle with the ball bouncing over his head. Sounds really bizarre, but it's happened quite a few times where he's misread the bounce and it's gone over, and all of a sudden the team's got to drop quite a bit to catch up with that. So
although when he gets to look at balls, he's got quite a good leap on him as well, I think. But sometimes it bounces, then obviously
sometimes it bounces and it goes over him, and then we're almost gone from what could have been a high press to then we've dropped, and you sort of lose that control you had. But look, he's young. We're playing with a lot of young players, and he's a fantastic player on his day. I don't know what's happening with his contract, whether he's getting offers elsewhere or he's just waiting for the right time to sign it or whatever. I'm obviously not privy to any of that. So it'd be nice to have him sign on. I think he'd be a really valued member of the team. I think he'd have to fight for that right back spot, and it's whether he wants to. I think he'd have to work hard for it, because I think Ogundere has done more than enough this year. I think he was really unlucky to be put out of place by Kofi Balmer last year. I don't think Ogundere was worse than him. I don't think Kofi Balmer was a great right back. I think he was a good centre back. But I think the only thing that kept him in the team was his long throw that we went to quite often. And we really, really used that. And don't get me wrong, we got a couple of goals from it, but after a while, it sort of gets a little bit predictable. And I think I don't think he was as strong defensively as Ogundare would have been. And also going forward, I don't think Coach Morris suits
1v1
that right
as well.
back spot. Yeah. I think he was absolutely fine in a back three. I think if you had a back three of him, Ryan Johnson and Joe Lewis, if they're all fit, that would have been fantastic last year. But if you're playing four at the back, I think Ogundare for me has got to be your man to go to.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess it shows the fact that Bieler's maybe fallen out, or Bieler, sorry, I think is correct pronunciation from what you said. Maybe the fact that, maybe last season or the season before in 22-23, the wing-backs had creative freedom, whereas if your fullbacks and your wide men have got the creative freedom, or the system's a little bit different, actually the fullbacks don't have the same license, and they have got to be good defensively in a way that maybe they didn't have to be to quite the same level last year. So maybe that sort of explains why there's been a sort of switching between the two in terms of being in favour. I guess going to the other fullback position, you resigned to losing Jack Curry this summer?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen, isn't it? I think it's going to happen. As much as I mean, as things stand, he's currently a Wimbledon player, and that may not change by August. He is a Wimbledon player. He's under contract, but I just can't believe there won't be interest for him. He's got a year older. He's obviously 23 now. So maybe I don't think that'll put clubs off, but it may do. Players seem to be getting younger and younger to make their debuts. So age seems to be becoming a real thing, but he's a fantastic player on his day. Very, very good going forward. And I think he was another player, whilst he is phenomenal defensively, he really suited that left wing back role because he's very good going forward, and he can put a good ball and he can beat a man. And he was almost like a left winger turn left back, because he had everything really down that left hand side, and he really made us tick. He linked up nicely with field, he linked up nicely with attack. And this is probably going back a couple of seasons now, but when we had him and Ayub Asal, there was some lovely triangles going on with their midfielder at the time, and they were working really well. And he makes things tick on that left hand side, creates things, and it's he's a really important part. If we are to lose him, I think we're gonna have to sign well. We're gonna have to sign a strong left back to suit our system, someone who works hard. Jack Curry works incredibly hard, and someone who's got a little bit of an end product on him, because we do often require our fullbacks to maybe get down and help sort of create things. Not as much as Pep, where they go inverted, but play a few passes.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I guess Lee Brown's don't think he's still signed a new deal at this juncture, but the impression I get is that people are reasonably hopeful that he will sign something, or because he has been offered a new deal, and I guess would it be a good idea to just have him as a stabilising option where he can fill in defence if needed, centre back if needed, but he's also an option at left back, so that you're covered if you can't quite get the right deal at left back sort of early in the window.
Yeah, no, I was a massive Lee Brown fan second half of the season. I think he made that. Do you know what? I think him and John Joe O'Toole stepped into that back line. And with Joe Lewis and Ryan Johnson out, who I think are two very, very strong centre backs, and probably two of the strongest centre backs we've had for a while, actually. And getting them both on permanent deals was fantastic. Getting Joe Lewis in January on a permanent deal, I probably tweeted about it at the time, was a real statement of intent from the club. Phenomenal signing for us. Huge thank you to John Green, obviously, for funding the transfer. But yeah, it was fantastic. And obviously, when he got injured, that was a real shame. But John Joe O'Toole, I think he was 35, and Lee Brown at 33 stepped into the team. And I think there was a little bit of people going, "Oh God, are we going to be able to cope with the pace of League Two strikers?" They did not put a foot wrong. I thought they were fantastic. John Joe O'Toole stepped in. We interviewed him after, I want to say, one of the games. I think he stepped in the Milton Keynes game, and he hadn't played 90 minutes for 18 months, and I think he played 9 in a row or something. Or I remember talking to him about it, potentially maybe he played 9 at that point, but he stepped in and he played 90 after 90 after 90 after 90, and for a player who hadn't played that for 18 months, did not look like he was out of place at all. And the same goes for Lee Brown. He steps into that centre-back role fantastically. He brings a level of calmness. He brings a level of experience with him. He's been in Pompey for so long, in promotion-winning teams. That's what we need, especially with such young heads. Obviously, Joe Lewis is a fantastic centre-back. He's 23, still learning. Obviously, you've got Jack Curry, who's young, Ogundare, who's young, Husbyler, who's young. We've got players who are coming through from the academy who can look to him and speak to him, because he can speak on mentality-wise, and to be still playing at a 33, 34 at a decent level, I think it's a test to his mentality and his help amongst the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned some of the academy graduates, because the two that stand out to me for the research that I've been able to do from the players that have been offered or handed professional terms are Kai Jennings in midfield, who seems to be getting some good reviews from his loan spell at Whitehawk, National League South, I believe, and then Ethan Sutcliffe at centre half, who's apparently had a really good loan spell at Tonbridge Angels as well. So is there some encouragement again that this brilliant academy is continuing to produce some exciting talent?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Kai Jennings has got. Unfortunately can't speak to how good he is,
Sure.
because I've not seen him play massively, but I've heard you hear good things, and that's what you can really go off, and that's exciting for us. And Sutcliffe as well. I think he stepped in one of the games. Apologies, it's been a long Monday, but he stepped in one of the games and didn't look out of place. He gives me similar feel to Luke Jenkins, who we obviously let go, and I think that was a bit of a loss, actually. And I do think that's a bad decision to let Luke Jenkins go, because he's smashing it at lower league level. And I imagine, I think he's just joined Aldershot, and I think they'll do well this year with him at the back, because he was fantastic. And I think Ethan Sutcliffe will be following that same mould. We tend to bring through a lot of good defenders and goalkeepers. I think that tends to be our way. And obviously we had Zach Robinson, who left the club this summer, who was a high prospect as a striker. Paul Kalambayi, who's just left as well, who came from our academy, but all of them have done well for the club. I think, and just, sometimes things don't work in terms of structure, or things just aren't working out. But it's exciting to see more and more players come through. Kai Jennings isn't, like you said, another really exciting one. And I think, again, he'll be one that potentially is a first half of the season loan, and then you might see him introduced second half. Talking of academy, Morgan Williams, I think he's going to have a big role to play this year. He unfortunately finished the season injured, but he looks fantastic. He steps into the game at Chelsea, and you would not have thought he was playing one of his first games with the club, or first starts anyway, against Chelsea aren't no minor team, and they only had about £700 million on the pitch. So he didn't put a foot wrong. I think there's a lot of excitement for him this season to see how well he'll do for us. Obviously, we lost Armani Little during the summer, didn't sign a new deal, went to Gillingham. Don't think that's a big of a loss for us personally. I think he sort of ran out of things at the second half of the season, whether he just played too many minutes or had a small injury or whatever. I don't think he's a massive loss in terms of how we can recover, we can replace him. And but we just need someone who's going to work hard, and I think Morgan Williams will do that. He'll play for the club, and it's always something a bit nicer when a player's come through your academy. You're almost like, he's ours, he's come through, and it's nice. So big season for those boys, and hopefully we can see the best out of them.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case. Is there what sort of role? I know you've mentioned how well Morgan Williams has stepped in against some of the best players in the world, or best top talents in the world, against Chelsea, and clearly he's another really exciting prospect coming through. Do you see a world where he actually storms pre-season and ends up starting the first game of the season alongside Jake Reeves?
Yes, I do, actually. I really do. I think he's a fantastic player. I think if he does well in pre-season, I think there's no reason why he won't be in the squad or starting. And I do think we've got James Ball as well, who is, I think, was underused last year. He came against Wrexham. He played almost as like a second striker. He's very good in the air. Obviously was top scorer for Solihull Moors in their FA Cup campaign a few years ago now, and I think he's got a part to play this year massively. I'm not too sure as to what maybe kept him out. I think the high bar that Armani Little and Jake Reeves set together as a partnership might have been a part of that. But when he's come in, I don't think he's been to the level. I think with a run of games, I think he'll really show that, and I think he'll have a big pre-season. So him and Morgan Williams, I think, will be, if we play a midfield three, those two will be alongside Jake Reeves, or it'll be those two fighting out to play alongside Jake Reeves. But I think those two will be two this year to watch. And also, again, like I said, we could bring in midfielders, and send Morgan Williams out on loan. It depends who's available, who we can get. If a massively experienced head comes in.
If you don't mind me coming in on that, I think I kind of hope that you don't loan Morgan Williams out, because I feel like for AFC, I saw a statement from Mick Buckley, I think from the end of May, saying Wimbledon had lost 1.1 million. I think he was saying the average for a League Two club is 1.4 million a year, which is quite scary when you think about it. And I think that for Wimbledon to try and become a sustainable football club in an unsustainable football world, as Mick really eloquently put it, you've got to try and develop some of these assets. And I know it's difficult because you also want to be ambitious and you want to try and get into the top 7 and you want to be competitive. But you've also got to try and develop players that have got a really high sell-on value, because that's going to make a massive difference from a sustainability perspective. So that's how I feel about it. Try and give these players the opportunities at the higher level, and then maybe if they're finding it a bit difficult, then you can sort of revisit the possibility of sending them out on loan. But I say be brave with sort of the progression plans.
No, I agree. I think we're no strangers to the fact that we need to sell players to be sustainable. It's a harsh reality of being who we are, and we're lucky that we've got a good academy that can help fund that. Obviously, we've got players who have got good sell-on fees. We negotiate deals well. Obviously, when Jack Rudoni moves on from Huddersfield, which seems there to be interest, I don't know if he's going to. We've got.
I've heard Jack Rudoni. Sorry, I've heard Jack Rudoni is linked with. I can't remember who it was, but I think I
saw one to Coventry. Which will be exciting.
I think it might be Coventry. So
yeah, and we've got a sell on him, so that'll be money to come in, and hopefully that we've got stadium debts to pay off. We've got other funds, a playing budget and things that we need money for. So we do some very good business in that sense. When we sell players, we sell them with sell-ons. We sell them with additional parts of the deal that raise the value, and that's so key to how we operate. It means we can get better players in the door. It means we can do more as a club. And like you said, exposing our talented academy players to minutes, getting them ready, means that clubs will come in and pay more for them. They'll come in, for example, I think we lost Spike Brits to Manchester City. I imagine he went for pennies compared to what he could be worth in a couple of years, and getting players now.
I hope you weren't let down. Sorry, I hope you weren't let down by a tribunal for that.
I don't know. I have no. It's a pure assumption because he left young. I'm not sure, but I imagine it probably wasn't. I imagine probably wasn't market value for what he could potentially be. But that's what happens when you're a smaller League Two club.
Sure.
Have you got teams like Man City coming in? I don't think, as much as Wimbledon's a nice area, and we're a good club, but I do think they have slightly more pull than we do. But no, like I said, it's good. It'd be nice to see these players make the first team and actually enjoy them while we have them. Again, it was like when Ali started banging the goals, and we were like, okay, cool. Be nice to keep him. And I was very confident actually that we'd keep him until the summer. I was wrong. I thought he seemed happy. I thought he wanted to be here. But when a Premier League bound club come calling, I think the call was probably quite hard to reject. And also he did feature I think he featured in 12 games from last year and got 4 or 5 goals, so that's not a bad return for him to step up 2 leagues. Again though, he wasn't one of our own, and I think when we do sell, when we sell Jack Curry, I think he's going to be the hardest one to lose. I say when, he might stay, but when I see him playing football at a higher level. I don't think anyone else will disagree with that. And he will hurt the most, I think, because we've seen a lot of him. We've had him for a few seasons. I think every Wimbledon fan's fallen in love with him and how good he is and the hard work he puts in. But it's the way our model works. Ayub Assar went for, I don't know, he went out to Saudi, went to the Qatar Stars League. Obviously, Jack Rudoni moved on to Huddersfield. Leon Chiwame, one of our academy boys, went on to Wolves. And he's starting for the Premier League this year. That was really exciting to see. So I think the way our model works, we sell players, but it's nice, like you say, it's nice to see them first. It'd be good to see Morgan Williams get a few starts this year, for some more minutes, and just see what player we've got in our hands and how good he can be.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk about the right wing position, because we talked about how James Tilley started the season in really sumptuous form, sort of cutting in from the right and getting on his left foot and putting a few lovely finishes. And then whether it was a drop in form from him, whether it was the switch to the 4-4-2 diamond over November and December that you mentioned earlier in the podcast, Tom, and whether, just a few things that kind of disrupted his momentum a little bit. I mean, I guess you're hoping that he can come back to his form, but then it also is there the possibility that someone like Aaron Sasu could provide a bit of competition for him as well.
Give
yourself some options on that right wing.
Yeah, no, I think James Tilley started the season. His first 10 games last year, he was genuinely electric. There was a ball he took down against Sutton, controlled it, and then just fired the ball in, and he really did challenge. When he gets out wide, he likes to take his man on. He likes to drop a trick and get past him. And I don't know what happened. I think maybe a change of style, like you mentioned, might have sort of hindered that ability as much, getting the ball out to those positions. But you get him wide, and he was phenomenal. I think he had 7 goals in the first 10 games, which he and Ali hadn't scored at that point. And maybe the balance switch where you go 2-0 up. If Ali and Omar have scored, we aren't going to push as much because we're 2-0 up. There's no need to push for goals. But yeah, I'm hoping we can get the best out of him this year. Like get him out wide, get him, terrorizing defenders, because he did. He really terrorized defenders those first 10 games. He was exciting to watch, and it was like, wow, we've got a real player on our hands here. We brought him in from Crawley, a local rival who ended up getting promoted this year. And we've got a good player on our hands, and all of a sudden, things can happen outside of football. I don't know what happened to him, but there's a serious player in there, and if we can get him ticking again, he will be a massive, massive asset to this year, who can help us push towards those playoffs, towards those automatics, which I think, as much as I hate to set expectations for a team, I think playoffs are minimum this year.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable expectation. For you to get there, you're probably going to need to spread the goals around, because we've touched on earlier that you're not going to have that star centre forward. So Tilley, if he can sustain something close to that sort of form over the course of the season, that's going to make a massive difference. And then I also wanted to come on to Josh Nerfville, because as much as I think Josh Nerfville has some potential, he's a very quick, direct, energetic wide player, so he's lots of raw ingredients there. He's now 23, and I think he's getting to the start of the stage of his career where you want to see a bit more in terms of output. 1 goal and 3 assists, I think it was, isn't great, but then look at it another way, that's a massive opportunity to, if he can get 8 to 10 goals next season, that's a massive step towards from being a top 10 side to being a top 7 side. So how important is it going to be from your point of view that Josh Nerfville adds that productivity to his game?
I do think it'll be important. However, he has been fantastic for us defensively, and I think a lot of that goes understated. He's sort of made that when we play with a wide, sort of a right wing back, but sort of not. He goes in there and he defends really, really well. He stepped up his attacking output and sort of beating his man. He did struggle with that before sort of the start of the season. He wasn't the greatest at getting past his man, and did look a little bit lost when he got to the sort of the edge of the box. But this sort of back end of the season, he was beating his man more often than not. But I do think he's more of a defender for us at the moment. Although I think he came in, we spoke to him on one of the post-match shows with Don's TV about how he finds the right back role, where he was sort of put in halfway through the season. Okay. And he said that he played all across the sort of right side at Luton, so he was used to playing more defensively.
On the right wing as well.
Yeah, he started off sort of more attacking, and then he dropped. I think we sort of noticed that all of a sudden, like, wow, we've got this player who can defend quite well, so let's move him back a bit more to the back line. And yeah, he really did excel as sort of a defensive wing back, who had a bit about him that could go forward. But I think, if he can get a few assists, get a couple of goals, find himself on the back post, or just getting that like you said, that a little bit of output, we'll have a serious team sharing the goals on our hand. And I think, like you said, if he can get to, I think 8 or 10 might be slightly out of his reach. But if he can get to 4 or 5 goals, or even just getting a few more assists, I think that'd be massive for us. If again, like I said earlier, I have no clue how we're going to play next year. So he might be playing right wing, might be playing right back, he might be playing centre mid. Who knows? But
well, do you know what, Tom? I was wondering, just you sort of describing that to me, just the thoughts occurred to me. Is there a world where you actually move Isaac Ogundur into an outside centre-back role and play Josh Nerfville at right wing-back? Because when Johnnie Jackson was Charlton manager, he was a very staunch 3-5-2 disciple, and that was the formation he wanted to play when he first came in at Wimbledon, and it took him until about October or November, I think, to go away from that. So is there a world where you actually go back to 3-5-2 and play Nerfville right wing-back?
Yeah, I do think that. I think if we go 3-5-2, it will be Nerfville or Ogundur or Housebella if he's still on the books. at that right wing back spot. I imagine we'll bring another centre back in, or we'll play if John. I don't know if John Joe O'Toole's been offered a new deal or if there's conversations there. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't mind to see him back. Obviously, he was only on loan. I'd like to see him come back because I think he was good and I think he played a really important role where he could move in sentiment if he needed. But I imagine if we're going to play 3 at the back next year, which like you said, Johnnie Jackson loved the 3-5-2 when he first came in. Obviously, he had Chris Gunter at right wing back, which probably wasn't the role for him at that time. A defender on at the end of his career maybe wasn't as fast as we need him to be. Feel sorry for him. I think that was unlucky for him because obviously he had a fantastic career, and I think the way he left was quite unfortunate for him. He got a good opportunity with the Wales coaching setup. You're not going to really realistically say no to that. A club you've joined at the start of the season. I mean, a lot of fans I think had an issue with it. Personally, didn't really bother me too much. I think it was a good opportunity for him to take. But we have a really exciting chance now to build a team into a formation that the manager wants. He's had 2 full windows now to do that. He's brought in good players each time, players that play his style of football. And I can see a world. I can absolutely see a world where we go back to 3-5-2. You've got maybe, if we're being pedantic, a 3-5 like 1-1. So Omar playing that sort of playing the 10.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's 2 strikers, but Omar just behind. Play onto a striker like a Josh Kelly who can get in behind. And like a Josh Nerf, a right wing back who can push forward. And Miles Hippolyte, according to Stockport fans, can play left wing back and push forward, and that would be.
I've not watched Miles Hippolyte in detail, and I've not had a chance to get an opposition view on him. So I'm kind of talking a little bit from sort of memory, but I'm not sure from what I've seen of Miles Hippolyte that he's necessarily great over long distances, but I think he's a very good ball carrier over short distances, which is why I think instinctively I actually probably prefer him in midfield, because I think when you're playing left wing back, you need to be able to carry the ball over really long distances, or at least get from one end to the pitch to the other. Whereas I actually think he's probably better in midfield. I think he's quite a cute sort of operator. That's just my sort of perception of Miles Hippolyte. But
when he joined, I thought he was an attacker. Like I didn't have too much knowledge of him, and I sort of put a tweet out, and a few Stockport fans got in touch, and they were like, "Yeah, he's a really hard worker." And apparently he played predominantly left wing back for them. I didn't know. But I've also seen, I think he's a bit of a utility player and can play centre mid, can play sort of attacking mid. So
yes, he is versatile.
Again, who knows where we're going to end up playing next year? First game of the season, I'll be excited to see it. But like you said, if he can do a job at left wing back, if he can play centre mid, if he can play, he's going to be a massive player for us. And I think there was a few clips going around of him playing for Granada out at in some preseason friendlies or some qualification games, and he looked fantastic. He looked like he was a real live wire, and like you mentioned there, quick sort of ball carrying across short distances. We could massively do with that. One issue we've had, and this isn't just a Johnnie Jackson thing as such, it seems to be a continual Wimbledon thing, is linking our defence and our attack. We had it a little bit last year where we were controlling possession, which was really exciting to see. As boring as it sounds, just holding the ball, it was nice to see a team that was sitting on the halfway, defenders sitting on the halfway line. I think at one point we genuinely had 10 outfield players in their half. It wasn't often, but a couple of times, and you're thinking, is this Wimbledon I'm watching? Because I don't remember this. And it's nice to see us, get forward, push teams, play the ball around and create chances, which we haven't, I've watched Wimbledon my whole life and I don't really properly remember us doing that much. We've always tend to be a bit of a counter-attacking team or ball over the top and rush through because we've always had pace up top, or much to my dislike, create a target man out of a target man, someone that isn't a target man, like Joe Piggott, for example. I think that man was a phenomenal striker, ball to feet. He put it to his head, and he wasn't as strong. Just because he's 6'2" doesn't mean he's or 6'3" doesn't mean he's a target man. But look, if we can get players who are going to sit into midfield, can get a ball, move forward to our attackers, and sync things up, very exciting.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to move on to. I guess the structure at AFC Wimbledon, because I think this is something that's needed a couple of tweaks, nothing sort of major, but just a few things that is still a very, as a sort of fan-owned club, I think that always brings certain challenges, I think, in the Football League. And I think certain progress has been made in the last year or two, especially with the appointment of Craig Cope as head of football operations, because the recruitment that he's done over the last couple of years and the way that he's overseen the whole football operation and some of the decisions that he's made, they've normally been spot on. So you must.
The man is yet to miss. The man is yet to miss. I can't think of a player he's signed that hasn't worked out for us. And the sad thing is, and I think almost the cynic part of me is saying that one player won't work, because you can't bring in the perfect player every time, because eventually you're going to find someone that doesn't work. But he has been our best signing, for want of a better, or acquisition, I should say, for in such a long time. Look, I've never gone into a transfer window so confident of who we're going to bring in. If you look at his first window, I think he had a say in Casey McAteer, I think, when he was sort of just before he joined us, Casey McAteer was fantastic. I really liked him. And then his first full window, you look at the 10 players that we signed, I think every single one went into our starting 11 at some point anyway. So that was like Alex Bass. What a huge signing. Bringing in Joe Lewis, Ryan Johnson. Like they are big players to bring in. And like you said, the man has not missed. He, as we like to say, Craig Cup cooks, and he does serious. He works seriously hard, and he's fantastic for this football club. So, I'm really looking forward to see what he brings to the table this year. I think we're going to sign some good players. I have no doubt. I think he's done nothing for us to doubt him either. So, full faith in him. I think he'll build us a good squad for the next season.
Absolutely. Well done to Craig Cope. And then I think we have to extend the plaudits to Johnnie Jackson, because I remember watching the fans forum from probably about 12 months ago now, and it did feel like there was a bit of restlessness from fans. It felt like they were a little bit disconnected from the team under Johnnie Jackson's regime, but it seems to me, as obviously improved performances on the pitch help, they always do, but it does seem to me that the team and the fans are a little bit closer this season. You've got to give credit to the leader for that.
Absolutely. I remember times that there were very, very loud boos ringing around Plough Lane, chants of "we want Jackson out." It was a really hostile environment, and for him to fight back as he has done, put a team on that's getting wins and getting good performances, massive credit to him. I think he's had his hands forced a couple of times with injuries and players being called back from loan, where he's not been able to do what he wanted to do. Being the Wimbledon manager also comes with serious, probably budget restraints. Other clubs are going to have. If you look at Wrexham, they can pretty much sign anyone in the Football League they want. Realistically, I imagine they could probably give Haaland a go if they really wanted to. I think they're still trying to get Gareth Bale on a contract. But I think he's done well to turn it around. There was times, like I said, that people were calling for him to be sacked, calling for him to walk away from the job, and he's not done that. He stayed. He's stuck with the club, and the club and the players feel so close. Like, there just seems to be, and I think I've banged on about it all season, definitely over the last summer. They just and sort of in the first half of this season, there just seemed to be this sort of energy around the club. Like, players you'd watch them walk off their little like videos after full time when they're on the pitch, and they're all running around, they're hugging each other. Like, Sutton away was the perfect one. I mean, it was lovely weather, so that probably helped. But everyone was in such a good mood. The players were loving it. The fans were loving it. And something I hadn't really felt with the Wimbledon team. Maybe I'd just been naive to it, and I was young in the real 78 games unbeaten. I was alive, but I haven't got massive recollections of those because I was only about 4. So it's nice to have a team that, whilst we're not going 78 unbeaten, it's a team that feels good. They feel like they're having a good time, and they feel connected. Obviously, Ronan Curtis gave us 2 very special moments to the club this year. That Mansfield 97th minute winner, and obviously his 94th minute winner. Look, I don't think I've ever been happier in my, like, for me, that is the best goal that will ever be scored, the 94th minute winner, because the pure passion that you saw in the crowds and the commentary, that Mikey T commentary video, what a video. And I just don't think we've had that for a while at the club. I think we had a few years, we struggled to settle into Plough Lane. I think COVID didn't help that. Obviously we moved to a new ground, we started playing at QPR, we then moved back to Plough Lane under restrictions. We did our test event where only certain amount of people were let in. And then we've built up and we've really made that place our own. We've had some corkers of games there now, and it's really, really exciting. I think if we can get recruitment right this year, and like I've already said, I have no doubt that we won't get that right. I think we'll do fantastically. And I think this year, I don't want to say it go too early, but I do think we've got a good shot at the automatic shot spots, and I'm happy for that to be quoted on, because I do, and it probably is the hopeful in me. I watched Wimbledon lose, or not lose, but not win for 28 games, and I thought we're going to win every single one of them. So I'm probably slightly more hopeful, and I don't think I've ever predicted a loss on the pre-match show. I think I've always gone for probably an outrageous victory. And I'm yet. I think the only thing I've got right is a clean sheet. So my views maybe aren't the best ones, but I do think we're going to have a good shot this year. Sure. But obviously, recruitment is the most important part of that. You know, I think we were unlucky last year. I think there's a couple of games that maybe the Bradford 0-0 really stands out to me as one that we should have won. You know, those 2 points would have pushed us so much closer to the playoffs. Would we have made it in the playoffs? Who knows? The playoffs are a freak of nature. We finished 7th last time we were in League Two, and we got last time we were obviously the last season before we went to League One to finish 7th and get promoted. Probably shouldn't have happened realistically. You do feel sorry for the team that finished 4th because obviously they were finished quite far ahead of you. But that's the nature of the playoffs. It's a bit crazy. And obviously, Crawley finished 7th this year and went up, you know, and that's the beauty of it. So I think I'd like to see us get in the automatics, but a day out at Wembley would also be very, very welcome.
Certainly would. So give me, you've said there, Tom, that you can strive for you feel you can strive for the automatics this season, and that top 7, the playoff finish is the minimum expectation. So give me the main reasons then, and I imagine Craig Cope would certainly be among them, to believe that AFC Wimbledon will achieve those ambitions.
I think we were unlucky not to this year. I think there was a couple of, you know, there's always moments in the season where things don't tick, or, you know, we have issues and stuff and things doesn't go our way. But Craig Cope, like I said, massive part of that recruitment. Recruitment is the most important thing for a season. I think we're getting it right on the pitch. I think we're getting it right off the pitch, you know, with stuff away from football. I think that's a big part for us, making sure everything's in order. We're using Plough Lane to its full capacity, and we're just getting things right. Attendances are high. And the players on the pitch want to play for the club. And I think that's a massive, massive part for this. You know, players seem happy and they seem to want to play for us. And that's not something you're always guaranteed with a football club. I just think it's an exciting time this season. You know, I think if we got up to League One, it was nice last year. We won 17 games and that was good fun. We've always, you know, in our 6 seasons in League Two, I think bar the first one where we finished 15th, we looked over our shoulders every single last game of the season. It was like, oh God, we could be relegated here, or we could be relegated here. And then obviously we were relegated in our last season. But our last season in League One, obviously, not last season because we were in League Two. But I just think Omar Bugil will be a big part, and I think we'll keep him. I think he likes playing for the club. I think fans love him. I just think get another striker in that will get us 10, 15 goals. Again, that is asking a lot. I'm aware they come at a price. Josh Kelly is going to get goals this year. And then getting that goalkeeper spot right. I don't think
we've mentioned fully yet. Do you think he can play a big part as well?
Oh, massive. He's a skipper, and he will. We had him on Don's TV, and when he was injured, and he was saying that he's watched the game from. He'll sit in the dugout. He'll sit on the 3rd tier of our stadium to watch for tactical. He'll go down to the dressing room. He'll chat to the boys. There's no doubt that man will go into coaching after, but the impact that he has on the team, purely from the little chat we had with him, he's a leader, natural born leader. He works hard. And he's quality, so that helps. So I think having him in the middle of the pitch will always help. And then building that spine, you know, having Ryan Johnson and Joe Lewis at the back, Omar will go up top, Jake Reeves in the middle, dash your spine, and then obviously a goalkeeper whoever comes in. It'd be nice to see an experienced head and a young keeper, sort of that nice to have someone to learn from for a young keeper. And
you got Bezo in the meantime.
I know, get him on the bench. No, but the thing is, Bezo is such a big part for us because he turns those academy players into. How many players do we have go through the England pathway, go on to bigger things? And that's really, really good. So, I think for me, the top things for next year will be Craig Cope. He'll help us get automatics because he builds the right teams. We've been bringing in a lot of experience. I think we're getting it right on the pitch, and also the fan base. I think the fans want it, and the fans will give it to the players.
Just very quickly then, Tom, because we are pushed for time at the moment. What would be the reasons, just very briefly, to believe that maybe Wimbledon might struggle to meet your ambitions next season?
I think if we play hoofball, I think we switched that a few times where we just lumped it up and it didn't work. I think if we keep it on the deck, we'll be much better off. We play better with the ball at our feet rather than launching it up. Omar Bugil's good in the air, but he's not good if the ball comes up to him 50 times a game. And then unless we bring in Matt Smith, I imagine it's probably time for someone else, but like someone of his ilk, someone who can win the ball constantly in the air and will win headers every day of the week. If we do that, I think if we just drop to playing, launching the ball up to our strikers, we'll struggle. I think if we don't get recruitment right, if we don't bring in the right players, Craig Cope seems to be bringing in players who are made of the right stuff. Football ability obviously helps, but I think if you're willing to pitch in and help out a team, massively important. So recruitment, that was probably pretty obvious. So apologies for that one. I think playing the right style of football, getting it on the deck, which I think Johnnie Jackson wants to do. I don't think he wants to play hoofball. I think that was just something we resorted to the end as a last ditch result. We played nice football as a diamond. We played nice in a 4-4-2 as well. That was playing football along the floor. And then I think just not firing goals in, but with Omar, I think Josh Kelly's going to be good for us this year, and I think Matty Stevens has got a big part to play. And Josh Davison, if he's amongst, he gets a lot of stick. Yeah, he didn't feature much last season, but he has scored a couple of goals for us, and he's done it at League Two with Swindon a couple of years ago. So,
absolutely, let's hope he can do that.
Find some form.
Let's hope he can do that again. Final one from me then, Tom. Give me a number between 1 and 10 to sort of describe how optimistic you're feeling. Too early for a prediction, maybe, but just give me a barometer of your optimism. I imagine you're more on the hopeful side from what you've been talking about so far.
Yeah, you know me very well. I'm quite often on the hopeful side, but no, I'll go for 7.5. It's probably a bit of a way to get out of the answer because it's bang in the middle of positivity. But no, I think recruitment if we get recruitment wrong, as I've said the whole chat, I don't think we will, but it's not done yet. The season hasn't started and we've not got players through the door. They will come, but as of this stand, so 7.5. If you ask me in 3 weeks' time, we've signed 8 players, all who have got promotion from League Two before, probably gets up to an 8 or a 9. I'm positive. Look, I think part of that is exciting to going back and watch football again because I do miss Saturdays at Plough Lane. As much as I love my cricket, I do love football as well. But 7.5 for me, I think is a good place to start.
Absolutely. Well, let's hope that those ambitions can be realised next season. Tom, it's been great to chat. Thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful to get your insight on AFC Wimbledon. Thanks to you for watching at home. This has been the AFC Wimbledon Summer Deep Dive.